And we're back. Oh, I didn't change my outfit, and neither did Mars. We forgot.
Shoot. You know,
I
that's a
remembered
new
just as we came in.
of our routine,
Yeah, we're
so
not there
that's
yet.
I'm getting used to.
Yes, but hello, welcome everybody. I see all of you new people here.
Yeah.
Not here for
Uh,
check-ins. You're here for the art. I see.
bigger
I see.
crowd. Hey, you know what? I will take that as a compliment. Okay.
Honestly, no, very true.
You're actually interested in the actual stuff we do.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's pretty neat. I mean, new what's today? The 23rd. Yeah, so
It is indeed.
new comic thing coming out on Monday. Yeah,
Yes.
I had to
Very
remember
excited.
dates. I have it written on my calendar. I'm not joking. I have every single comic launch written on my calendar because I need to remember alternating days. But yeah, I know you just got here, PCM. Thanks for showing up. Here for the art. I was just gonna check.
Thanks for coming in clutch.
Yeah. You smelled art. You did smell art. It smells like art spirit. Well, you're getting
Well,
there, PCM. See, you didn't play any games to get them points up.
it is going to be a lot of art tonight
Yes.
because I sadly cannot talk about my original topic. I am a millimeter from throwing my voice out, so
So
I
we
will
get
be
ASMRs.
taking a little bit of a vocal break. Ori was very kind to step in and talk art with you guys. Yes, ASMRs. That is apparently what
ASMR.
this voice is now
ASMRs.
called
That's what it
because it's
is.
very low
It's very
and very
quiet.
soft.
I'm popping into the
I'm
microphone
not
and we're just
I'm
very
not
close in
raising
your
my
ear.
voice
Yeah,
or
art stream. Well,
even
I mean, it's always an art stream, microwave tree,
and,
but it's do we talk about it? That's the
and
true question.
and you guys, I gotta save my voice for Ace Attorney. You know, if I
It's
can't
very
do the
important.
character voices,
Then
what's
we
even the
don't
point?
we don't get a video, and then she has to re-record every line she says
Oh God, no.
afterwards. So she has to be good.
I literally have 5 throat lozenges and a whole tankard of water next to me.
And you're not allowed
This
to
will
talk tomorrow.
this will be fixed.
And you're not allowed to talk tomorrow at all. And you're not allowed to talk Saturday until D&D. This is
That
how I
might be
fix you.
hard. That might be hard with improv class and observations, but I'll do my best.
Sick note. This counts. You go to voice school. This is a sick note.
But I can't let my kids down.
Then you teach them sign language, huh?
Ah,
Improv. See, you're improvising right there.
that'll easily take up a whole hour. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's how you do it. That's how you go. Alrighty. So yes, what we'll start with is we'll do some questions. Mars said she has some questions, but if you guys have any art questions at all relating to the comic, relating to general art stuff, I didn't go to art school, so just I'm gonna preface with that. However, I have taken art classes both from an art school and online. However, it's not very many, one of each so far. So that is my knowledge. So everything I have done, I've learned
Hey,
in practice.
they always say experience and practice is the best teacher.
Yeah.
So
So
I'd say you're doing
it's just disclaimer, right? Disclaimer.
But my question
Mm-hmm.
comes down to all these redraws that you've been doing. Now, I know you've explained it to me a couple times, but I remember in the past, especially when you talked a bit more about the art, you went on about how sometimes you just gotta accept that it's not gonna be perfect and you gotta move on. And you were doing that for a while, but recently you've had this change of heart where you're going back and fixing not everything, but just a couple panels here and there. So I'm wondering, like, when did that, or I'm wondering if you could explain to the audience, like, how does that change come about? When did you decide, like, kind of enough's enough? I can't live with this anymore. Screw what I said earlier. Essentially. Exactly.
So I think it's a difference in two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
The I think it's a difference in that sometimes when you're working on something, it just is not happening. Okay, there's cases when, you know, I've picked up a sketchbook and tried to draw, and it's just not happening. Okay, you know, I've done whatever, it's just not happening. Unfortunately, with you guys have seen me on stream sometimes where the ideas are just not happening. You know, with Lycoria, it just not happening. Sometimes it is just not meant to be, and unfortunately, forcing yourself during that sort of scenario just kind of makes it worse sometimes. So it doesn't really work out. However, unfortunately, the comic does have a deadline, right? And I knew that with my life, you know, things, and Mars's life things, and everything, that, you know, we're not working on the comic full time all the time. So I don't have as much luxury to just be like, it's not working today and move on. There's a certain extent of I need to get it finished. And so there is a certain extent to, this is good enough, this is how it is. However, with the passage of time, as you, one, improve as an artist, you know, over the course of like 2 years in certain cases, you do just have more ability to just bang it out a little easier. And so there are certain panels that are so egregiously not up to my current standard that I feel like they ruin sort of the immersion, right? Like even me looking at them, it sort of ruins the immersion of reading the comic. Like, this looks so different, so out there, that this isn't even X character anymore, right? Like this just isn't it. And so I have given myself the liberty, as because I do have the time, right? It's not that I don't have I do manage to make the time to pick usually about 3 panels at maximum in the entries that I redo. And it, to me, to be honest, elevates the entire thing, because I'm really sorting and going through, and I'm picking only the ones that are like really egregious. And I've even made, as I believe I mentioned once before, I ask Mars, and I pick out the ones that I'm like, these are really like irking me, right? And then I have her rate them, and I'm not gonna tell her what rating makes me do anything, but certain, you know, it's like a 1 to 5 rating, where 5 is, no, this is perfect, I don't see a problem, and 1 is, oh my god, you thought this was okay. And I won't tell her what number prompts me to make it happen, but that would be
okay, but I think I can figure it out from context.
Sometimes, because sometimes you disagree with me.
Oh my god, this is horrible, I need to redo it. Like, I have a feeling it's gonna get redone.
Well, yes, there are certain ones. Obviously, if it's a 1, it'll get redone. But I won't tell you, you know, beyond that. You would not be a good client. Why would you not be a good client? You need it to be perfect, or you don't care. Those are 2 options. Hello, Oscar. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
But so, I actually have left panels that Mars has said are like, no, this looks fine, even though when I look at it, go like, I don't like it. And we've had different ratings where, you know, I might rate something a 1, and she's like, no, it's a 4. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess that's lower on the priority. And so there's certain cases. I think an interesting example is Hotsun here. In all of these, while he looks like Hotsun, he is slightly off. And the biggest thing that gets me is the fact that his braid is drawn in a way where, besides this panel, it really looks like it's coming out of the side of his head and not the back of his head. Okay? And that's something that's pretty consistent throughout all of them. However, I wouldn't say that ruins the immersion, right? I bet none of you would see that unless I pointed it out, right? No one would care. I care, and I can see that because he's my character, I draw him all the time, and I'm like in it for hours working on these panels, but, you know, I can understand that somebody else reading it, only seeing these characters every other week, is not gonna, like, pick that out. Like, you're reading the comic, because on top of that, you're reading the words and you're doing, people aren't sitting here looking at this.
Said, reading the comic versus working on it and working, like, I'm going to use the word intimately with the characters.
Exactly. So it's definitely something where it's like, well, it kind of irks me. I can reasonably understand that this is not worth my time to redo that. Versus, I showed a while ago that Milano in the doorway. I saw that and I said, I as a standard can't put this out, and I can't even imagine why, as a person, when I did that in the first place, I thought that was okay, because honestly it was egregious. And now that could just be I was not as good at art back then, and so I thought it was okay. But there also could be I was rushing at that point, and I have a bit more luxury. No, exactly, Oscar. Yeah, it is like that. You can, there's like a sound that goes around on the internet, and it's like, I spent, hundreds of hours on this, so you could look at it for 5 seconds, or something like that. So you do sort of have to realize when it is important to you versus important to the person you're viewing. And so the only ones that I'm redrawing, that I've chosen to redraw, are because, one, I have the time, right? If I was like, I don't have the time to keep up with the comic and redraw these panels and do it, like, I wouldn't be doing it. I would suck it up and move on, because it's more important to me that that comic comes out on schedule every single week, every other week, versus me being as happy as possible with it, because I also understand that it's mostly on my end compared to anything else. But if I have the time, which I do think that it does make me happier, right, to redo them. So I do think it is worthwhile. So the difference is that when I was doing sort of the art and I was like, yeah, you have to just kind of accept and move on, is sometimes it just, you could sit there for hours, right? Hours and hours and hours trying to redo this one face that just isn't happening. That's not worth it. Versus, I bet I could come back to that face, say, oh God, I thought this was acceptable, and redo it in 20 seconds. That's an exaggeration, but I can picture myself struggling on that Milano panel that I was like, that full body Milano, right? I can picture myself back in July of 2021 having a tough time spending too long on that and just saying, this is good enough, I need to move on and continue doing in order to get to a point, versus now doing that, honestly, drawing the whole thing from sketch to flat colors probably took me 2 hours max, at high max. Probably less than that, probably like an hour. I'm sorry?
Your skill level has increased.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's another thing. And just like, it's just a better day, so some days it's like, and sometimes you just don't want to draw the thing that you have to draw, I guess, is an interesting example. I didn't work on the comic very much yesterday, and I think it was yesterday, and instead I spent many hours drawing like Corey and figuring out her design, their design and everything like that. And versus in the past, if you see me try to deal with them on stream, it was just not happening. Versus it was just coming out of the hand at that point. So I think there is a sort of, yes, at a certain point you do just have to say, this isn't happening right now, this is good enough, and move on. And then you can come back eventually with more time, with probably, a clearer head or a different perspective, and be able to fix that if you need to. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Oh, very much. It's enlightening to hear, because I'll keep it brief because I have to, but the whole thing you said about like, sometimes it's not the right time. Like, sometimes I run into that with writing, where it's just like, my head is not in the right space to write this scene, nothing is coming to mind. But if you ask me to write about this other scenario that we're not even up to yet, I could totally write about that.
I know, Oscar.
So it is a balance. But something Oscar said is actually prompting another question from me. So Oscar mentioned the thing about drawing a page for 8 weeks and then someone sees it for 3 seconds. And you mentioned that as well. So for me personally, as a writer, like, reading time varies between people. Some people take longer to read it. Some people like zip right through. I'll be honest, sometimes when I'm reading webcoms, like, I am scrolling every second, maybe. Like, I'm just going down, going down, going down. And maybe if I see a page of art, I'll like stop on it for a little bit. But I'm wondering how you feel about that. Like, is it discouraging to think that someone might only see it for a brief period of time when you've put so much into it?
So it's not, yeah, and Oscar does say some people do appreciate the details and others don't, and so that's why
Mhm.
Oscar, yeah, likes certain things. So it does matter. When I was learning about comics, it is sort of like you do use panel size and panel distance as sort of like a way to force people to look at something longer. So an example is, no matter what, you're gonna look at this very intricate panel that I did, with all of the everything longer. It is just
Mm.
physically longer. You are going to have to at least scroll once to see the whole thing. Right? So you're physically forced to stay on this longer. Same within a comic book, right? If something takes up an entire page, you're going to look at that longer because your brain kind of tells you that it matters. If that
Uh-huh.
makes sense, your brain kind of tells you that it matters versus like, these panels which are smaller with the forks and eating are going to be pretty quick. You're going to just kind of thumb through them to get an idea. So
Mm.
it is a balance. So if you've noticed, which people probably haven't because of this exact thing, I specifically don't essentially color and shade all of these panels the way I would shade, say, those whatchamahoos, the tarot cards, right? The Dungeons and Dragons trading cards, or the way I would
Mm.
work on a commission, right? Or even the way that I worked on these characters that were here that I drew for my background that you can barely see because they're cut off, but you get the idea. Or like my fan art of Reagan and Randy, the amount of time that I dedicate to that one piece is significantly longer than almost any time, except maybe literally this panel because it was just a pain, to almost any of the Outcast comic panels for that reason, right? For that reason is the fact that the idea is to get an idea of the motion, right? The idea is to get the sort of like what is happening and you're setting the scene, but most, like you said, people aren't going to be looking at it. So that's another reason why I can get past redrawing everything, right? Like I said, like I can get past that thing with Hotun's hair because the fact that literally nobody's going to notice it. You're going to look at his face and you're going to move on. And that sort of thing. So it's definitely like that's why that's why I can get through background so easily, is the idea. I love Fang's Oscar. In like hardcore art, when I draw of them, they have way more detailed teeth, but not not for this because of what I'm talking about right now. I love sharp teeth. Almost everybody's got to have sharp teeth. Like Corey has flesh fangs because they were cute. So I don't find it discouraging, and the reason I don't find it discouraging because essentially I think mostly about my own sort of level of satisfaction for doing this, for doing the comic. I am not thinking about, like, I obviously want people to read it, like we're posting it for a reason, and I definitely know that like art matters. The art does matter because I know I as a person have passed up on comics and shows and whatever based on the style or the quality. I'm really not a personal fan of black and white, and thus I really don't read a lot of manga just because of that fact, is that it's not my preferred style. I really like having the color. So that's the reason I redrew those other two entries, from the beginning is because of that fact. I wanted to make a good first impression. But it is a first impression that I'm satisfied with, right?